It's not about pretending, it's about becoming. It's about transforming yourself into the image you visualize. And today I want to share, as always here, or at least as most of the time, here at the Neville Goddard Decoded podcast, a quote directly from Neville Goddard that illustrates this point beautifully. And I then want to share with you how I stepped into the image of my wealthy self and how I transformed myself into wealth, into abundance, into riches, which then allowed me to manifest the vibrational equivalent of who I had become into my physical reality. And that's how you can get abundant. And of course, the same also applies to you if you want to use this principle to manifest health, to manifest a loving relationship, or to, for example, manifest certain experiences. I've done it with all these things. I mean, I also shared my personal healing journey with you, where I had a cyst removed in my bladder and then severe nerve damage. And I also healed my body with this principle in the same way as I manifested abundance with it. And here's what Neville Goddard says. The great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished. It cannot be emphasized too much that by creating an ideal within your mental sphere, by assuming that you are already that ideal, you identify yourself with it and thereby transform yourself into its image. Thinking from the ideal instead of thinking of the ideal, every state is already there as mere possibilities, as long as we think of them, but as overpoweringly real when we think from them. Now think about these words. What does it really mean to use controlled imagination? It means that you direct your attention, as Neville Goddard says, and I want to quote again, firmly and repeatedly, focused on the object to be accomplished. So, if you want to become financially abundant, if you want to be financially free, if you want to live all over the world, if you want to live an amazing life, if you want to fall in love with your life over and over and over and over again, because you're so abundant, then you need to become the definition of abundance. And what's the first step of becoming the definition of abundance? The first step is to control your imagination, because if right now you live in poverty, if right now there are all these signs of lack and scarcity in your physical environment, then it's so easy for your imagination to go in all kinds of negative directions. Your imagination might go to a point where you can no longer afford your rent. Then your imagination might go to a point where you are retired without any money. Then your imagination goes to a point where you can't pay your bills. That's because you don't focus enough on the state that you truly want. And that's where controlled imagination comes in. And I know that it's easier said than done. I know that because for me it was also not that easy in the beginning to focus on the rich and wealthy version of myself that I truly wanted to be. But that's why I created the Abundance Reality Shift coaching program for you. That's why I'm so passionate about coaching people from all over the world who want to become abundant. And for example, when it comes to controlled imagination, in week number 4, we create the clear picture of your abundant future, and we practice the exact way of writing down your new story about abundance that I used to manifest several $100,000 in a relatively short period of time. So you might want to find out more about the Abundance Reality Shift coaching program by going to affirmation2manifestation.com/abundance. And you might also want to think about what Neville Goddard says in the second sentence of this quote. It cannot be emphasized too much that by creating an ideal within your mental sphere, by assuming that you are already that ideal, you identify yourself with it and thereby transform yourself into its image. So now, right now, I want to invite you to think about who you want to be. Not necessarily what you want to be. I know you want to be rich. I know you want to be wealthy. I know you want to have abundance in your life. But who is the person who lives this abundant future? Who's the person who feels wealthy, Who is wealthy? Who is the definition of wealth? What kind of ideal do you want to create within your mental sphere that you can then focus on up to the point where you transform yourself into its image? Remember, this is the process, or let's better say the goal of the process is to transform yourself into its image. These are the exact words that Neville Goddard used, and I want you to now break it down. Break it down in different parts, break it down in different aspects, break it down in a way where you can clearly identify certain aspects of your personality, aspects of your physical appearance, aspects of who you are in this ideal picture that represent wealth. It's kind of like designing a character for a video game. I mean, if you've ever played one of these adventure quest video games where you design your character and you then choose the armor that this character has, you choose the weapon that this character has, you choose what hair color the character has, you choose all kinds of different features of that character, and you have to think about yourself in the same way. You have to think about yourself as this character, as right now you might be the personification of scarcity and lack. You're broke, maybe, I mean hopefully not, but maybe you're broke and you don't have enough money, or at least not the amount of money that you want to have. So who is the version 2.0 of you? Who is the ideal that you want to step into? Because remember, I want to repeat it again with Neville Goddard's words. By assuming that you are already that ideal, you identify yourself with it and thereby transform yourself into its image. And when I started out on my money manifestation journey, I broke it down in the tiniest detail. I asked myself, what kind of clothes do I want to wear? I mean, that's why in the beginning, for example, when I had nothing, absolutely nothing, I had this one tailor-made blazer that I made in Thailand for a job that I had back then. I still remember that. I had this one blazer from Thailand that cost me, I don't know, $20 or something. It didn't cost more back then. And every day I was going to work, so to speak, in the beginning, when I wasn't even able to sit, I wasn't able to stand, I was just lying on the bed or lying on the couch with my smartphone or laptop. I was still dressing myself up in the pain that I had in this blazer because it made me feel 1% more abundant. So I used all these different ways of basically making myself into the man that I wanted to be, into the person I wanted to be, into this abundant ideal. And nowadays I no longer work in a blazer because I feel so abundant that you could put me in a potato sack and I still feel abundant. But back then, when I didn't feel abundant at all, creating this ideal really helped me. And I then asked myself, how would the rich and wealthy version of myself think, feel, walk, stand, sit? What kind of beliefs would I have? You can break it down in all these different details. I mean, see it as a fun exercise. I don't want you to look at it and say, oh God, no, that's tedious work. No, I want you to have fun with it, play around with it, create your character for the video game that you are playing right now in this simulation, and design it with joy in your heart, design it looking forward to becoming this person. And then always remember what Neville Goddard says here, thinking from the ideal instead of thinking of the ideal. Every state is already there as mere possibilities, or as Joe Dispenza always says, there are unlimited possibilities in the quantum field, which goes hand in hand with what Neville Goddard says here. So again, every state is already there as mere possibilities as long as we think of them, but as overpoweringly real when we think from them. So you have to think from the perspective of somebody who's already rich and wealthy, from the perspective of somebody who has already achieved financial abundance. You have to put yourself into this character, into this ideal so much that you think not like the version 1.0 right now of you, but the version 2.0, the abundant ideal. And once you reach this state, then you can change not just who you are. I mean, by then you effectively changed who you are, but then you will change your reality, because remember, your reality has to match the ideal in which you step into. And I would be honored if you gave me the opportunity to guide you through this process, to help you and to make sure that you become as abundant as I've become since I've practiced these techniques. So if you want to find out more about the Abundance Reality Shift Coaching Program, you can go to affirmationtomanifestation.com/abundance. And if you want to find out more about all the different coaching sessions I offer, if you, for example, want to start with an individual hypnosis session or an individual coaching session, you can also go to affirmationtomanifestation.com/coaching.